And we're here with Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, doing swell. How you doing?
Good to have you back. I gave you the
I
week
know,
off from
I
Bruins
know, it
beat. I
was
let you. I
great.
let you.
Had to rest the vocal cords, so gotta get ready for the playoffs. So
Yeah, it was like we'll get into Bruins resting people for playoffs, but it was kind of like you. You got to that mix of Fergie and Jesus and those vocal cords.
of
It's not going to
course,
last if you just keep talking.
it's load management as the NBA and I think the NHL is now adopted. We'll use that term for taking the week off. So gotta manage the minutes, right?
Oh yeah, and also last week might have been a bad matchup. Bad
Yeah, yeah,
matchup
it's
for you.
true.
Might have been a
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
matchup. You
of
and
course.
end of Aprils don't always mix. So it
Yeah,
was kind of like, I gotta put you in the right position to succeed and
that's all
manage
that
the load.
matters.
That's all
Yeah.
that matters. That's all that matters. Also, I'm like, this is recording on a Monday, so by the time you hear this, I will be fully vaccinated. But I do get fully vaccinated in about T minus less than 2 hours. So go me. I will be.
Congratulations.
Don't can't stop me.
I will be getting the second shot on Tuesday. So
There you
I
go.
will be right there with you.
As people listen to this, you will be getting vaccinated. So
Yes.
lucky us. Hopefully, you all can go get vaccinated as soon as you possibly can, so we can all get back to doing normal things in a normal summer, which just feels like it's like the Red Sox played the Rangers
Hmm.
this past weekend, and and looking at the crowd, it was just like, wow, there's no COVID over there, is there?
Apparently not. Congratulations to Texas for
I
being
was
ahead of the curve, I guess.
I was stunned, but it is weird to see people just kind of like chilling. It's like, damn, and selfishly, I'm like, I want that. That's
Hmm.
what I want. We
Yep.
all want it. But yeah, they seem to be just rolling along down there in Texas.
Yep.
What's
Par for
going
the
on?
course.
Yeah, that's Texas. They do their own thing. So Bruins, things are going well. Things are going very well, especially for one man. There is one man on the Bruins. I mean, there's many who are doing very well, but there's one who has seen a enormous jump in points. So we've been talking about it for weeks now. It's David Krejci. Now in his last 11 games, he has 14 points, 6 goals, 8 assists, which is ridiculous. Like this is one of this is as good as Krejci has looked since the Nathan Horton, Milan Lucic
Yeah.
days. Like he is on another level of good, and we know he has this, but it's comes down to playing with competent wingers, which he has not been doing for the past like 6-7 years. Which begs the question: in any other year, this would be amazing. Oh my God, David Krejci finally found his left wing. He's got his right wing. This is set up for long-term success. And the truth is it? Because David Krejci's 35 and a pending UFA. Taylor Hall's a pending UFA. So we'll start with Krejci. And I think heading into this year, it was really a big question of whether or not he'd be. We kind of thought this probably be his last year. I remember after the last year's playoffs, he kind of in his post game presser after the final game had said to everybody, "It's kind of finally hitting me that this is, we don't have many kicks at the can left."
Hmm.
And I think going into this year, with the money Coyle was making, with Stadnika playing a increased role to start the season, it was pretty obvious that Krejci probably wasn't going to come back for next season. But now he's producing incredibly. He looks like playoff Kretsch. And technically, it is play. I mean,
Yeah,
this
he's
is
right on
typically the playoff
schedule. It,
time.
it is May, so
He
I
is
think
on
he's right on.
schedule.
So if the Bruins get to like Stanley Cup final and it's July, it might be like summer vacation crash. So like that could be bad. So hopefully he's
He,
able to carry it going a little bit longer.
yeah. So they're hoping that continues. But now with everything changed, Coyle's not producing at the level he should. Stanika can't even crack the lineup. Krejci is producing insanely. How do you bring him back? Do they bring him back?
I mean, I think you have to at this point. I think you look at uh, the other options, as you said. I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of kind of forecasting what probably the Bruins and a lot of us thought the center position was going to be after this year, where, all right, David Krejci is still going to be David Krejci this year. He's still going to have, play at a 40, 50 point pace over a full season, still be good, still drag along whatever wingers he's got. But you have Charlie Coyle, who's getting paid like a top six guy. You expect him to make that jump up. You expect Jackson Nika to really crack through. And, there's people who thought he was going to be up like the Calder or what have you, or at the very least be a guy that was going to flash a lot of promise that you could see him getting a full-time job next year. Obviously, that has not panned out in either regard for both Coyle and Studnicka. So I think you look at this team and it's tough to kind of forecast years from now what to expect from this team, but you look at the way they're playing right now and the pieces they have in place, it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that if you sign Krejci and Hall again and get a lot of these pieces back, you could run it back with the same group for another year or two even and still be a pretty viable contender, just the way they're playing. So I think that's the only option the Bruins really have at this point is bringing back David Krejci. Now, granted, I think you need Hall back with him. I don't think you're signing Krejci and then having him drag another line that has guys that are, at this point, third and fourth liners. Like Nick Ritchie's on the third line, fitting in well, but on the third line, and Jake DeBrusk is the fourth line, kind of straight line north-south guy. So if you get Krejci back with Hall, I still think you've got a really good line there. You got Craig Smith already under contract for a few years. And it's not like David Krejci's a guy that you always have to be worried about injuries, but he's not a guy that you look at his skill set and it's something that's going to decline with age, really, right? Doesn't really rely on speed anyway. He's more of just so good with reading the ice and a good playmaker that I'm not saying he's going to be playing at an 80-point pace, when he's 37, but he could still be a gifted playmaker, a guy that can dictate the pace at an older age. So I think that's really the only option the Bruins have at this point. And I mean, they've got the money for it. It's not like we're looking at this situation where, yeah, it's all going to depend on how much him and Hall and like Rask want. But you've got the money. You've got about $32 million in cap space. So it's all about I think the tougher decision is not the financial part of it. It's just the Bruins mapping out what the next 2-3 years are going to be, because I think probably the best bet now is running it back.
Yeah. Oh, it absolutely is. And I also think when you look at the free agent centers, I have them right here in front of me. Yeah. None stand out as ones you'd want more than Krejci, or ones that are going to make less and give you more value. Like, I'm looking at it right now, and like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is 28. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's 28. He's going to probably he's making $6 million now. I would imagine he'll come in around that. Yeah. And so Krejci, I think, honestly, if you could get him at 2 years, $5 million, or 1 year, $5 million, that's a pretty damn good deal for David Krejci. $5 million. I think that's good. And with this, and it's tough because, again, he'll play a bigger role than Coyle. But Coyle also signed his deal before the pandemic. Coyle signed his deal with the assumption that the cap would go up. So, I mean, if there was no pandemic and the cap was going to be, $85 million next year, or it was already 85, and then it was, close to 87 the next year, Krejci could make more than that. Like, I think, Krejci would make more than that. The market would be up, but it's not. So there's no one else I look at as a free agent center for this year. I mean, there's Philip Deneau, but like, is that really, you're not going to really get him that, Montreal's going to keep hold on him. So I don't, there's nobody else that I think you want. And I also don't think there's anyone else on your, I mean, do you feel comfortable going into next year with Bergeron as your number one and then Coyle as your number two? No, you don't, because every time Coyle was up there on the top six this year, it really hasn't worked out that well. And I don't think he has shown, again, we've said all year, it's this audition to be, the number two center was this year. We thought that would be kind of it. Well, let's see what he's got. And none of that's happened. I also think the other thing, the interesting part is with a guy like Taylor Hall, and DJ brought this up last week, and I thought it was a good point. If you're Taylor Hall and you want to sign somewhere long-term where you're going to be a winner, is this it? Like if Krejci leaves, if David Krejci leaves and the Bruins say, we're going to sign you for 6 years, $39 million, and your center is going to be Charlie Coyle. Are you going to be all too pleased about that? I mean, nothing against Coyle. Yeah. But are you going to be dying at the chance to play with Charlie Coyle and Craig Smith? I mean, that's a glorified third line.
Yeah. No, I mean, as I think DJ said, I think you're looking at the best. You have to find the best situation if you're Taylor Hall. We're also still getting paid. Like, I think he's still going to get, I don't know, 5.5, $6 million probably annually. But you look at what David Krejci brings you, it gives you the best of both worlds in that he's going to be here. He'd be a top six forward over a full season. If they play like this, like Taylor Hall could be a 30-goal, 60-point guy at the minimum, right? Like the way I want to temper expectations because let's say they run it back next year. I hope people don't think it's going to be like, Neely Oates and like you're going to have this line like lighting the world on fire, but it's still going to be a very good, effective line. But you have him back with Krejci. You're going to be producing points. You're going to be on a winning team. You're once again, not going to be the guy. I mean, he's still the fourth, fifth best player on the team. So it's still makes plenty of sense. It's a great situation for him. So, but I think that's going to be the key, though. If you're signing Krejci, you need Hall back. You can't go back to another what poor David Krejci's been subjected to for years now, which is just driving a line without the proper firepower.
Yeah, and I also the other thing to think about is where Rask fits in this.
Yes.
Like I think Tuukka Rask ultimately, you know, he's been looking great, and Swayman looks amazing, and he looks like the guy of the future. But you also have to temper expectations because he's goalie. Like that stuff can just that shit can hit the fan quick. So I do think that you do have to bring Rask back. I think that a year, 2 years. I think if you can get Rask on a 2-year deal, I think that is most ideal. If you can get him at 2 years, a little over maybe 5 per, I think then you have something. And I find this interesting because I think most people are on board with this. And I think Halak is obviously the odd man out. We've all said this. He'll probably walk at the end of the season and go play somewhere else. He's still got gas in the tank, not worried about Halak finding a place to play. But Fluto mentioned this on Monday morning, and he wrote about a lot of this stuff. And he said, for both cap and hockey purposes, the Bruins would have to consider trading Jake DeBrusk. And when you really think about it, when you really sit down and crunch the numbers and put down people in lines, so you got Marchand on the first line, you got Hall on the second line, you got Nick Ritchie on the third line, and you probably have Trent Frederick on the fourth line, or Sean Corrali if you re-sign him, but we'll see if that actually happens. But Trent Frederick on the fourth line is the left winger. DeBrusk is the odd man out. DeBrusk is the odd man out. And he's carrying a sizable cap hit. I think it's just over 3 per year. DeBrusk is making. So remember, we all thought that was such a good value deal, and maybe it still is. Who knows? But you might have to trade him to free up cap, because you also have other pieces you have to sign. You have RFAs. You have Nick Ritchie. You have Brandon Carlo. You have Andre Kasha. You have Trent Frederick. Mike Riley's another one. Yeah. Mike Riley might have priced himself out. Mike Riley's making a pretty damn good case to make a lot more money this offseason. And that might be a guy who's out of your price range, which I still would like them to re-sign him. Right. So if you have to try, do you trade DeBrusk in this situation? I know we both were a little hesitant on pulling the trigger at this deadline. Should the Bruins pull the trigger in the offseason to save other pieces?
I think certainly probably the writing's on the wall if you just look at the cap situation and where they can best utilize it, because again, I don't think he's got a spot here unless maybe Ritchie walks and then they envision DeBrusk as a third line winger. But I think it all is going to depend on what kind of return they could get for him. Like if they use him in a package deal to get a replacement for Riley and get a cost controlled top 4D, then I think they would make that move, because that's addressing an area of need while giving up a guy who's not really has a set role in the lineup. So I think that could be a situation where they move him. I don't think they're going to move him just for the sake of like a cap dump, right? I don't think you do that, or you expose him to Seattle just for the sake of getting that money off the books, just because he still has value. Like again, I think we talk about this every single time. Like it's he's still a guy they don't want to keep out of the lineup, but they don't want to just part ways with, because they still think he's got talent, and he does. But you just look at the composition of this roster. If you have David Krejci and Taylor Hall back, something's got to give, right? And so again, I think it's all going to depend on what the return could be, and it depends on what his value is. Like maybe he catches fire in the postseason again, and then his stock goes right back up. So, and then the Bruins have to assess then, is he our third line winger and we keep him there, or do we go move him for? I can't even speculate on what a defenseman was, but like last year, there was all the talk of like Hanifin or one of these guys. And I'm not saying DeBrusk Hanifin would be a swap, but like a guy like that who is another young cost-controlled guy who you could package DeBrusk and a couple other guys together. Like I could see that being the case.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we saw with this trade deadline. We thought that, it's funny, in the offseason, you could have traded DeBrusk for Ekholm straight up, maybe with a piece added, but like you would have, that could have been more realistic. DeBrusk wouldn't have to be a package deal. You'd kind of be a 1-for-1 kind of guy. Now that's changed completely. I also think what a situation it would be if he ended up lighting up the playoffs, because then it would feed into the narrative that his camp is consistently pushed. It's like he's clutch. Jake DeBrusk is clutch. And that's sort of been what gets him the money every time. And again, like his cap hits 3.675. If he's stockpiled on the third line or even the fourth line next year, and he's a fringe lineup guy, he's not going to be producing at that money level. You're not going to be getting you signed him as a second line guy. Like, I don't think the Bruins signed him or re-signed him. I mean, they had to because he was an RFA, but I don't think they re-signed him to be a third liner,
No.
So, do you want to put that money into your third line with a guy who's just kind of missing expectations completely? So that'll be an interesting thing. I mean, do they have to trade DeBrusk? I think that's something that, and by the way, you're going to hear a billion trade rumors about Jake DeBrusk this offseason. I mean, you're going to hear every trade rumor in the book. I could see him going to Western Canada, though, considering he's quite literally from Western Canada. Calgary, Edmonton. Was there something with Edmonton too? There was some rumor with Edmonton.
It was for like a horrible trade. Wasn't it like Zach Cassian or something like that? Is what
I think it was. It was for like it felt like a downgrade, but there was a trade rumor involving him because there were a lot of trade rumors the Bruins were involved in last offseason. Remember, there was Ekman Larson.
Yep,
that was the big one, and then like you could trade Rask to Arizona, be a Kemper back in the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that whole thing. People were so excited about Oliver Ekman Larson. Well, I don't even know how he's doing this year. I don't expect he's doing anything crazy.
Poor Arizona should have sold off their assets when they had another dumb team that you have to see the writing on the wall. But they'll probably trade Garland this year now that they've realized they messed up their last chance.
He'll go to the Bruins. Maybe DeBrusk for Garland straight up.
That would be robbery, but
yes, that would be robbery. Anyways, but yeah, I think with Rask, but again, the money can work. You can make the money work. You have space, as you said. So I don't think that this is like totally out of the realm of possibility. And also one other thing I think to remember is Krejci did say, and this was like 2014 when he said he wanted to finish his career in the Czech. He hasn't really spoken much of since. Now, he was asked recently if he's been thinking about his contract. Obviously, the answer was no, haven't been. That was the most predictable thing in the world.
David Krejci didn't wax poetic during a post-game press conference.
You're going to be stunned to hear that he did not. Yeah. He did not go on a 3-minute soliloquy about his contract. He just said, nope, not thinking about it. I'm focused on the team and focused on winning. And that was that. But that is Krejci. That's Krejci in a nutshell.
That is David Krejci.
You're not getting a lot out of him. And maybe he's just so locked in that he just, that he's been so locked in that he just doesn't want to, he can't talk to anybody. Like on Spittin' Chicklets, Pasternak mentioned the Barbie girl thing. And he mentioned how like he had to go talk to the media. And obviously to us, he said like he was missing the Barbie girl song, but he said like, oh, I had to go talk to the media. It was so sad. And I was like, damn, you really look upon like talking to us as the horrendous thing. And come on now, we're not that bad.
I mean, it was Barbie girl though. So
no, in that case, I get it. I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be with the Randy Savage glasses jumping around a Barbie girl. I'll admit it. I wouldn't want to talk to everybody else. I'd want to be with the team jamming a Barbie girl. So I will give him that. Next topic. Obviously, as we do every time a Bruins beat or any podcast is recorded, when there's a game that night, we say this has been recorded before the Bruins play the Devils. So this has been recorded again before the Bruins play the Devils Monday night. We don't know if they clinched or not. They can clinch with a win or a Rangers loss, I believe.
Rangers loss, yeah.
And you only need 1 point. That's all you need. You just need 1 point. So given history, they're only 2 wins against the Devils are in shootouts. So just get to the shootout. And then you can put out, just randos. You could throw Tuukka Rask in the shootout. You could have him shoot. I mean, you just need a point. So it begs the question, is this a year to rest guys? Or do you need to fight for the best possible seeding?
I could see the Bruins kind of towing the line a little bit and keeping some guys in, but especially I think maybe once you get to that, they should do it for that friggin' the last game against the Capitals. Screw that. Like, do not put any dudes in there for that last game because that's going to be, and of course you're going to get that narrative because I'm sure the 4 teams in the East are all going to be switching spots for the last week or so, right? I think it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that the Bruins are like a point out from like the Capitals for the number 2 seed, let's say, in that last game. At that point, screw it. I don't want you to roll out with guys that are going to get banged up right before the playoffs. So it's
like 17 feet away from the ice at all times.
Yeah. Like, Bruce Cassidy kind of talked about that on Sunday about how they are gonna, slowly, when the opportunities are there, rest guys, and the fact that seeding and home ice even maybe not doesn't have as much of an advantage as it does in years past. So we'll see. I mean, there definitely is some perks to it. Like even when it's not like the bubble situation it was in last year, you still got a situation where I think it probably makes a world of a difference if you got home ice and you're spending more time at your actual house than like stuck in a hotel room still. There's still kind of that difference with it. So I could see them kind of very much going game by game, kind of assessing the situation. Like maybe in the last game, you have a spot where you've got like Halak in there and a few guys from the taxi squad. You got Greg McKegg scoring a hat trick against the Capitals.
Yes.
And but we've also seen it backfire. We've seen, I think it was leading up to the 2019 Stanley Cup final, or the Stanley Cup playoffs, rather. I mean, the second to last game was that game in Minnesota where Kevin Miller blows out his knee and that's that. And he would have been very helpful during that run against the Blues. So definitely tough situation. It's one of those ones you look back and it shoulda, coulda, woulda in terms of starting guys or not starting guys, or if the Bruins get bounced out of the first round, we could be like, oh, they should have gotten home ice. Or if a guy gets hurt, why'd you play him? So it's all going to depend on just how the chips fall. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So I could see them kind of trying to get the best of both worlds by, a couple guys every single game kind of down the stretch here. But if they're in a spot where they can strike against Capitals, then I think they'll keep it going until maybe that last game.
Wasn't it 17-18, the end of that season, when Carlo got injured at the very end of the season?
Yep.
Like he
got broke his
broken leg.
Yeah, broken leg.
Yes,
that was I think that was the second to last game too. So maybe just,
and I think that was the Capitals. Wasn't that the Capitals?
It was the Capitals.
There you go. So let that be an omen to keep anyone who could possibly impact the playoffs at all out of that last game against the Capitals. As we currently record, though, Penguins sitting first at 71 points, Caps at 2 at 69, the Islanders in 3 with 67, and the Bruins in 4 with 66. So I think, again, that's all close. I mean, again, the difference between Pittsburgh and the Bruins right now is 5 points, and that can easily change with a few more games left to play. So I think that, you will see things jump around. I mean, remember, I had the Bruins finishing third like a few weeks ago. We both had the Bruins finishing second. We both had the Flyers also finishing first at the beginning of the year. So I'm not going to draw on those predictions, but I think you had said that the Bruins would finish in second, or you thought that would be where they would finish. I mean, they're playing well enough to be, they've probably been the best team in the East for the past month. So it is interesting how they I still cannot get over how much they did the 180. Like how basically in the span of 20 minutes went from a team that looked like it could miss the playoffs to a team now that's like a cup contender. And it's incredible how Mike Riley, Taylor Hall, Curtis Lazar all completely changed that. And I think when we look back at this season, whatever the fate is, out in the first round, out in the second, winning the Stanley Cup, I think it's going to be like, damn, that was a trade deadline. If you can do that, if you can do a shell of that every year, you will be a much better team. So it is incredible how they just did the 180 right there, right in front of our very eyes, right in front of our pessimistic eyes. Remember all the weeks we sat here just ragging on them, because they're boring. And I remember one week I called them boring, and people were like, "You don't know Bruins hockey. You should be happy. They're contenders." Speaking of contenders, before I wasn't even going to bring this up. I just kind of remembered this. I didn't have this planned at all, but I don't know if you saw this in The Athletic. Mark Lazarus, he covers the Blackhawks for The Athletic. He wrote a piece, I believe it was last week, kind of posing the question. I guess when your team is out, you have to get some interesting story ideas. And this was a pretty cool, like kind of a debate. This is a good bar stool topic, a good, topic to when you're sitting at the bar, having drinks with your guy friends, you're sitting and you're just talking sports. It's a good one of those topics,
What's the Jimmy Cagney accent for?
It's, it's relatable to nice bar stool conversations. But this is a good one. I like texting my friends about this. I was like, oh, what do you guys think? But he basically posed the question. I don't know if you read this. Would you, since 2008, would you rather be a Blackhawks fan or a Bruins fan? Now, obviously, people go, oh, Blackhawks, because they won 3 Stanley Cups in 5 years, and they were the best team in hockey for like 5 years. But then he also says, well, the Bruins, were also one of the best teams in hockey every year, even in their rebuilding years of those two seasons, 14, 15, and 15, 16. They still had over 90 points. They were just outside of the playoffs. They weren't bad. They just weren't as good. But every year they've been buyers at the deadline. Every year they've been, contenders pretty much. Every year there's been the hope that they could win a cup. They did once. They went 2 other times. Now you could make the case that it's extremely heartbreaking being a Bruins fan. And I think that's merited. A lot of Bruins fans, every year they get their hopes up right about now. And then they get stabbed in the heart come either, late summer or mainly spring and summer. But I'm curious to this because I don't know. I mean, I think we've been fortunate in this town that the Bruins have been so good for so long, and that, they have always been contenders because that wasn't how they always used to be. And what do you think? Because I think you read this.
Yeah. I'll take the 3 championships. I think the championships trump everything. I think you want to be good every year and come up short. Congrats. In 20 years, you're the 90s Buffalo Bills. No one gives a shit about them. They're just
the San Jose Sharks. The San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, you're literally just a punchline. That's all you end up being. I'm sure to the fans.
And I don't think this Bruins team will be a punchline.
No. They've won a championship. That's what helps them out. That during this whole run, this core still has a title. That's the biggest difference there. But I think you have to look at just the ultimate goal is just to win a title and to win 3 in 5 years and have the run that they had. Chicago. I'll take that over coming up just short every single time. Is it all worth it when great moments like Torrey Krug blowing up Robert Thomas, Chara getting the standing ovation? It's all great moments, but it all means nothing at the end because you didn't win the championship. Gregory breaking his leg doesn't mean that you lost. You lost in that series. All these incredible moments, all of them are undercut by watching them again, being like, "Oh, that was awesome! I can't believe they fucking lost."
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
No, it's true. I mean, you think about it, and we've said this 1,000 times. If the Bruins had beat the Blues, Char probably has the statue of with us, getting a standing ovation, or Krug has a statue they had on Robert Thomas. All these Boston sports moments. The Edelman catch in 28-3 would not have meant anything if they lost the game. Kurt Schilling's bloody sock would mean nothing if they lost that series, or they lose the World Series. I mean, imagine if this is always one of my favorite hypotheticals. If the Red Sox had, beat the Yankees and, come back from 3-0, beat the Yankees, and then lost to the Cardinals in the World Series. It's it's incredible. So I agree with you. I think, again, the championships matter the most. I think in times like these, I think people would err on the side of, I'd rather be a Bruins fan just because they're contending and the Blackhawks aren't. But I think when you get the feeling of 3 championships, and I mean, if just from a reporter perspective, to cover 3 Stanley Cups in 5 years, and to be around a team like that and covering a team like that, that's pretty big. I mean, that Blackhawks team lives, among the best teams that have ever played in the NHL. I don't know if the Bruins have one of those teams. I don't think they do. Or at least, in this run of the best teams of all time. But no, I think ultimately it's the championships, but I think it's an interesting hypothetical. It's interesting. Again, a possible conversation. But anyways, before I let you go, is there anything that you would like to plug?
Yeah, we're going to start looking at potential playoff matchups over at BSJ. So subscribe to bostonsportschannel.com for all that good stuff as we get closer and closer to the postseason. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at ConnorRyan_93.
Go do all that. You will not regret it. For CLNS Media, I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have an amazing rest of your week.